Today we're going to go through and rank each and every MLB stadium, all 30 of them. And keep in mind, this video is very subjective. These are my opinions on these stadiums. You can feel completely different about it, and that's okay. And that's what makes these videos so fun. There's going to be disagreement no matter what, and that's okay. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. First up, I wish I could make this picture a little bit bigger on here, but we have the Rogers Center. Now, this stadium is one of the better stadiums that can fully encapsulate and be a dome per se, and I think it's held up really well. I think it's around 30 years old or so, and I think I got to give this stadium a solid B. It seems like a really good place to take in a ball game, and it's still really cool that there's actually a hotel out in center field. Next up, we have the Oakland Coliseum. Now, a lot of people hate this stadium, call it a dump, and so on and so forth, but I kind of disagree. Yes, aesthetically, it's not the most pleasing, and yes, there's been sewage issues for players and such, but going there, it's affordable, there's a lot of room, and I've never had a bad experience going to an A's game. It's really not that bad of a place to take in a ball game, and I don't mind going to Oakland, watching A's Mariners game or what have you. I don't see why that stadium gets so much hate. Yes, like I said, it's not the best looking, but truly it's not the worst in my humble opinion. So I gotta give the Oakland Coliseum a solid C. Yes, a lot of people would probably rank it lower, but I've been there a lot in my life, and it's really not all that bad. It's just old and a little ran down. Next up, we have Coors Field. Now, Coors Field is a beautiful ballpark. It is one of the great looking stadiums that we have in the game today, and it was part of the old school movement back in the 90s when all these stadiums were being built, and it's very similar to, say, Camden Yards, Safeco, now T-Mobile Park, in that era of stadiums, and I think it's held up great over the years, and I hope to go there here in the near future whenever baseball and travel and everything else is kind of back to normal. I would love to take in a ball game at Coors Field. So with that said, I gotta say Coors Field is an A stadium. It's that nice in my opinion. Next up, we have Nationals Park. Now, to me, this is a very nice stadium, but it's a bit generic, and I don't know what it is that just doesn't really encapsulate me. Maybe because I'm not a Nationals fan, but there's just something that's just a bit generic about the stadium. Maybe it's just me, because I don't know, I'm weird and I don't mind the Coliseum. But to me, Nationals Park is just a little boring and a little lackluster. So I'm going to have to put Nationals Park at a B. It's just average, it's solid, nothing wrong with it, but nothing extraordinary. Next up, we have Tropicana Field. Now, we've all heard the complaints of Tropicana. Yes, does it look a bit like a dump? Yeah, it kind of does. And are there fans there? No, not really ever. But to me, if the team makes the playoffs, it looks like a real interesting place to take in a game. But I've heard it's a really big issue to get to the games due to the highways and such. I don't know, I've never been there. And due to the stadium just looking like a generic dome that really doesn't exist in baseball today, it's just kind of outdated, and the Rays should get a new ballpark one of these days, even though they probably won't. I gotta put Tropicana Field at a D. I don't like it as much as the Coliseum, so it gets a D. Next up, we have Kauffman Stadium. Now, this ballpark was renovated 10, 15, 20-ish years ago. I'm not really specifically sure, but it's been renovated, has cool waterfalls out in left and right field. Overall, this stadium is solid looking. I don't love it, nor do I hate it. I think it's kind of like the Nationals Park. It's nice, it just doesn't really grab me in to say, hey, this ballpark is awesome. And that is why I'm giving the Royals Park a B. Next up, we have Chase Field, home of the Arizona Diamondbacks. This ballpark is actually really cool, and I've been there. It's a really cool stadium to be able to explore around it, and it has some really cool, unique features to that ballpark, such as the pool out right center field, and it has a big scoreboard. Dead center has a huge wall for center field, and how stuff opens up for when they actually have cooler weather, and so on and so forth. It is a very unique and different stadium, so I gotta give Chase Field a solid B. Next up, we have Target Field, home of the Minnesota Twins. Now, this field I feel weird about. I think it's a very nice looking ballpark, and it plays pretty good too, looks good on TV, but how in the hell is a stadium built in Minnesota and there's not even a roof to cover it for when it's ice cold outside? It doesn't make any sense. It's not like they didn't have the technology to make a stadium like the Brewers or the Mariners or the Blue Jays or what have you. I just don't get how the Twins were allowed to build a stadium without having some type of way to cover up the field when it's, 20 degrees outside, or if it's snowing. It just makes no sense to me. So I gotta detract that just a little bit because it is a very nice ballpark. I gotta give Target Field just another solid B. Yes, there's going to be probably a lot of B's because there's a lot of stadiums in here that I don't hate nor do I love. So they're just kind of average in the middle, just like Target Field. Next up, we have Oracle Park, home of the San Francisco Giants. Now, people are probably going to hate me for saying this. I really dislike this ballpark. Aesthetically, it's not bad. It really isn't. I think it looks good on TV and so forth. But if you've ever been in that ballpark, it is a miserable experience. I hate going to Giants games. One, all the seats are too tight. You're crammed in there like sardines. The stadium itself just feels cramped because it's just how it's blocked up to the bay there. And everyone there is incredibly rude. It's just not my favorite place to take in a ball game. I very much prefer the Oakland Coliseum over Oracle Park. Again, aesthetically, it's nice, but when you go there and take a game in person, it's a bit dirty too. I would say it's even dirtier than the Coliseum. I know, hot take there, people are gonna call me crazy, but it's just not a great place to take in a game. It's just too cramped, it's too close to the bay, and it makes the whole stadium feel cramped, and people are just ultimately rude there. And I don't feel that way about a lot of other stadiums, but Oracle Park, you take the cake, and you just aren't my favorite, man. Taking into account of how I feel about it when you're there in person and how it looks on TV, I'm gonna give Oracle Park just a C. And like I said before, these are my opinions. You can feel completely different, and that's cool, because I'm sure a lot of people don't feel that way about Oracle Park, but to me, it's just not the best place to take in a ball game. And that's not even talking about the parking situation they got there, which is just atrocious. Next up, we have Citi Field. Now, this is no Shea Stadium to me. Shea Stadium is kind of like the Coliseum to me. Yes, it looked like kind of a bit of a dump, kind of thrown together, but it felt like the Mets. Just like how the Coliseum feels like the A's. Citi Field just feels, I don't know, a bit too perfect and linear to be the Mets, and something needs to be just a little off to be the Mets. You're not the Yankees, you're the Mets. And this ballpark is nice. I like how they brought in the fences after the first couple years, since no one was hitting home runs on those giant walls. It just didn't look good. On TV, this stadium looks fine. It is very much kind of like the Nationals Park to me. Like, it's aesthetically fine, but there's something just kind of missing. It's just a little bit lackluster to me. So with all that said, Citi Field gets a C from me. Next up is Camden Yards. Now, this is of course home to the Orioles, and this ballpark started the ballpark revolution that began in the early 90s, and thank the Lord the Orioles started this, because my goodness, do ballparks look so much better today compared to, let's say, 30 years ago. Now, Camden Yards isn't my favorite ballpark of all time, but for what it did for baseball, making stadiums go in another direction, actually feel like baseball stadiums again, I gotta give it props for that. But having the warehouse out in right field, having unique shorter walls in left and center field, and overall this looks like a nice place to take in a ball game. And with the skyline in the back and everything, Camden Yards is a really nice stadium. I think it's A tier. I think I gotta put it in the A tier for various reasons to starting the new trend of stadiums, and it has held up so well for almost 30 years. It still looks pristine as it did almost 30 years ago. So Camden Yards, you get an A from me. All right, next up we have Angels Stadium. Now, this ballpark was renovated roughly around 30 years ago when the Rams quit playing there, and this ballpark, it's not my favorite. It really isn't. As a Mariners fan, I watch a lot of Angels games because the Mariners play there a lot on television purposes. It just kind of is lackluster. It feels a bit old, and it really was the same layout as the Oakland Coliseum before they renovated it. And to me, being the Angels and them being in Anaheim, you think they'd kind of fall into the Southern California look and feel of things a little bit more than what they do. And I really hope the Angels get a new ballpark one of these days here in the near future. It'd be awesome. And overall, the Angels Stadium is just kind of meh to me. There's no unique, super cool features other than the giant A out in left field, which just hasn't aged well. To me, it's kind of dumb. But I get why people sometimes like it. To me, it just reminds me of California Adventure from when the Disney company actually owned the Angels. I don't know, it's just kind of a relic of its era, 20 years ago or so. It's just not my favorite ballpark. I don't love it, so I'm gonna put it at a C. There's nothing ultimately wrong with it, but it's just not my favorite. Next up, we have the Rangers Old Ballpark. Now, this ballpark is beautiful, and it is so sad they're not playing there anymore. Totally get it why they're not, because it's hotter than you know what in Texas. and they want an enclosed stadium for when it's super duper hot in the summer. They can close it up, put the AC on, it's all good to go, and on nice days, open it up, have a beautiful day. Exactly like what the Twins should have done, just with cold weather, but again, I'm not going to argue about that too much. So this stadium, to me, is beautiful. It's unique looking. It looks old school. I love it. So Rangers, your old stadium, gets an A from me. Next up, we have Dodger Stadium. It's one of the older stadiums in baseball, and Dodger Stadium is just a bit lackluster to me. They're renovating center field now, making it more of like a hangout bar section, I think. They're renovating also like the bleacher areas too. And overall, like, it's a nice looking stadium. It's legendary at this point, but it's just weird how it's just in a ravine. Isn't that just odd? I get why they did it back in the day, space and land, and that's how stadiums were built, but it's just really weird that a Southern California team like the Dodgers, you think SoCal beaches and so forth, is this kind of in a ravine in a giant parking lot. That's pretty much all Dodger Stadium is. You would think Dodger Stadium would be more of a downtown type deal, but stuff wasn't like that, back in the early 60s. So it's a relic of its time. It's held up really well. I'm glad they're putting money back into it to preserve it, and I gotta give Dodger Stadium a B. Next up, we have Fenway Park. Need I say more? Fenway Park, legendary, beautiful stadium, bucket list stadium to go to, one of the best. That is S tier stuff. It's superior. It's Fenway Park. There's no debating it. It's just, we all understand. It's Fenway Park. I love it. It's beautiful. Hope it never goes away. Hope it stays right there forever and it has another 100 years. Miller Park is up next here, home of the Brewers. I don't hate this stadium, nor do I love it. There's some unique features of it, of course, like the slide that Bernie the Brewer slides down, which is pretty cool. Big center field area, kind of like Chase Field, but it's not in play like Chase Field. And I believe this ballpark is around 20 years old now. It's held up pretty well over the years. It's a stadium that can open and close, which is a nice feature in the Midwest that can get super cold and super hot. So it is a cool double feature that they have there. And overall, I think I just got to give it a B. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing extraordinary. All right, we have Citizens Bank Park up next, home of the Phillies. And I think this stadium is really good looking. It's pretty unique in how the bullpens are layered. I really like that. I like how it's kind of a double-decker type deal for the bullpens. You have the Liberty Bell out in the outfield that rings, I think, when there's home runs. That's pretty cool. And this is definitely an improvement compared to a veteran stadium that the Phillies used to play in. It feels like a real baseball stadium, and it's held up well over the years since it's been open. And I think Citizens Bank Park is another solid B. All right, Petco Park is next. This stadium is absolutely beautiful. This is what I kind of talk about Southern California feel that the Dodgers and Angels should kind of do. This is it. The Padres got it. You're downtown. You have that kind of that beach feel, that beach vibe. I've been to this stadium. It is absolutely beautiful. I love how they have the old warehouse out in left field and built the stadium around it. Super, super cool. In right center field, they used to have like a sandbox, people to play in, which I believe they closed. It's more of like a bar deck now, which actually doesn't look too bad. It's a nice little upgrade. I think it looks a little bit better than what it used to. Overall, this ballpark is just absolutely stunning, beautiful. 10 out of 10 recommend to go check it out if you haven't. It is one of the better stadiums you can go to here on the West Coast. Padres, you outdid yourself this one. You get an A. All right, we have the Great American Ballpark. I believe it's still called that. Home of the Reds. And I don't know how I feel about this stadium. I think the boat out in center field is pretty cool. It's pretty unique-ish. I mean, balls technically could go into the river. I think the balls hit far enough. I believe it's kind of centered in the downtown area. Could be wrong there. Never been to Cincinnati. On TV, it looks pretty good, but there's just so much red. I know they're the Cincinnati Reds, and I get it, but I think we could have kind of toned down the red a little bit, and it would be a more aesthetically pleasing stadium. Solid B. Nothing wrong with it. Just not exactly my exact taste. All right, next up we have Busch Stadium. The stadium itself to me isn't all that unique. It's kind of generic actually. That's how I feel about it. But having the St. Louis Arc out in center field is super duper cool. It's downtown. Looks like a great place to take in a ball game. On TV, it looks really good too. But with the aesthetics of the backdrop, how the field is and everything, again, it's another B. So Busch Stadium, you get a B. Now here we go. We have Safeco Field, T-Mobile Park. I'm always going to call it Safeco Field because that's just what it is. The Mariners Ballpark is my favorite. I'm biased. I don't care. I love it. It is one of the best stadiums in baseball, one of the best places to take in a baseball game. You know how I was talking about rude people in San Francisco at Oracle Park? Well, that is the exact opposite here at T-Mobile Park. Been going there since I was a little kid. There's nothing but polite people that work there and attend the games there, And it is seriously such a great atmosphere to catch a baseball game. If you're going there by yourself, or if you're taking your family, what have you, it is one of the best stadiums in baseball. It is beautiful. The stadium has held up so well over the 20 plus years, and it is unique. I love the big giant hitter's eye out center field, the beer gardens, which is called the Pen now, in left center. You have the Hit It Here's Cafe. You can see the Seahawks Stadium in left field. You have what was the Safeco field sign in left field, which is now the T-Mobile Park, which has kind of become a legendary staple of that stadium. And of course, Safeco opens and closes. It's always open air though. Even when the roof does close, cold weather can come in, the sides don't close up, so it's literally just a top on top of the stadium. To me, one of the most legendary ballparks over the past 20 years. Again, I am biased, I know I am, but I love this stadium. It's brought me so many great memories over my life, and it is one of the best places you could take your family or just to catch a ball game. It is that enjoyable, always an awesome experience. And people can say that what they want about the Mariners, but does that franchise know how to run a ballpark and have a great atmosphere and experience for their fans? One of the best. S tier, Safeco Field, T-Mobile Park. It's that great. All right, we have Yankee Stadium here. Now, if this was old Yankee Stadium, it'd be right up there in the S tier, no doubt about it, because it's just legendary and it's been around forever. But new Yankee Stadium, to me, there's just something missing about it. Maybe because it just doesn't have all the historical moments and things that happen in that ballpark compared to the old one. But overall, this is a nice looking stadium. I never mind watching a Yankees game. But of course, Yankee Stadium has short porch and right, and it's very much built like the old Yankee Stadium after they renovated it in the mid 70s. And I think that was a good thing. And I like how it pretty much keeps the same vein of the original Yankee Stadium, but an updated new version of it. And I gotta give new Yankee Stadium an A. All right, we have Wrigley Field here. Now, again, a lot of people are gonna hate me for this. I don't love Wrigley Field at all. Never have, never will. I don't like it. I don't know why. I think it's ugly. Always have. And it's not because of the ivy. It's just there's something about that stadium I just do not like, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because night games, the lights are so dim, especially pre-high definition. It was such an annoying experience to try to watch a game. And I know there's rules and like how much lighting they can have because they're technically in a neighborhood and stuff. So I get it, but it's just not my favorite ballpark. I know they've done a lot of renovations to it over the past 5-10 years, let's say, but I still just don't love it. I just don't. I like how it's downtown in a neighborhood and how close it is to the bars and restaurants and stuff. That's really cool. It's just not my favorite, man. I don't love Wrigley Field, but for it being such a historic ballpark and standing the test of time and still looking fairly okay today, I gotta give it a B. Well, this is strange. The Rangers have another stadium here. It's the same old ballpark. It's just a night game compared to the one up top here. So we're just gonna put that at the end of the list, and we're not going to repeat that. Next up, we have Marlins Park. Ooh, yikes. I'm glad they took out that left center field monstrosity thing with like the fish on it and it'd move and light up and dance or whatever. That was horrible. And I like how they changed the fence color. It's not that lime green anymore. It's a dark blue. Looks a lot better. Overall, I think this is a nice looking stadium. I feel like it's just gigantic, which is kind of odd, but watching it on TV, it's not horrible. I think it's a solid stadium. There's nothing ultimately wrong with it. It can close up on hot days, which is nice. And beyond that, I think it's just kind of generic. It's kind of like the Nationals Park. It's kind of the same thing, but it closes up. It's just generic. So I'm going to give it just a C. Sorry, Marlins fans. All right, PNC Park here for the Pirates. My goodness, is this stadium beautiful. Talk about unique stadiums. It's got the river out there. It's got the bridge that you can see, which is just so, to me, iconic of the Pirates now. A unique layout in the stadium. I love the small wall out in left field. Super cool. I love the retro, old school vibes you get from the stadium, but obviously it's modern and newish. I mean, the stadium I think is almost 20 years old at this point, and it's one of the more iconic stadiums in baseball to me. I think it's absolutely beautiful. So I think the Pirates fit in the S tier category for me. It's that nice. Now, maybe it's different for people that have gone there in person, but from what I can tell on TV, it is one of the best stadiums in baseball, and I think PNC Park deserves the S tier category. Here we have Comerica Park. Now, this ballpark, like I've said about a lot of them, is just okay. I think it's good, not ultimately bad. I like that it feels like an old classic ballpark, how it's really deep kind of everywhere. and that's really unique. Even left field, they brought in the walls, I think right after they opened this ballpark. All the brick and stuff they have around that stadium looks really cool, and I like how it has a take on old school baseball stadiums, but in a modern setting. And of course, the giant tiger, right? The giant tiger, super cool. I gotta give Comerica Park a solid B. Ooh, Comiskey Park, you are something to behold. I think this is one of the ugliest stadiums in baseball. Yup, it's pretty darn ugly. I'm not a fan of it. They've tried to kind of improve it over the last few years. They added some ivy, I think, in center field, and it looks a little bit better. But to me, this feels like a very sterile stadium, and it's just not the best looking. But compare it to old Comiskey Park, and my goodness, does that stadium look super cool, historical, feels like a baseball stadium, you know? And this one's just kind of like, I'm kind of here. A lot of concrete, a lot of bland colors, and just bleh. Sorry, White Sox fans. I'm gonna give your stadium a D. All right, finally, we hit the end here. Maid Park, home of the Houston Astros. Everyone can feel about how they want to about the Astros and the whole scandal, but the ballpark seems to be one of the most unique and good looking ones in baseball. I mean, it has a railroad track when they hit home runs and a train goes across it. That's pretty cool. The short porch, the Crawford boxes in left field, the giant wall in left field that they technically play off of. Towles Hill that they used to have. Towles Hill was super cool. Sad that they took that out, but I get why they did. You know, health concerns and injury. And I think they built a giant bar standing area on top of the new hitter's eye in center field, so I get it, make more money. And right field has shorter walls, which makes for some pretty cool moments out in right field, robbing balls and so forth. And overall, this stadium is just really cool. And it, of course, closes up completely when it's super hot down in Houston. And without further rambling, I gotta give Minute Maid Park an A. Before wrapping up this video, I just realized that Progressive Field's not on here, home of the Indians, and I don't know why it's not on this list, and I'm double checking at this moment to see if I missed any other stadiums. But Progressive Field, really nice stadium, definitely a lot better than their old one. I think it's really kind of just synonymous with the Indians now and what they're all about. Giant wall in left field, not super unique, but definitely a stadium of its era, and I'd give Progressive Field a solid B. And then the other stadium we missed was the Atlanta Braves Stadium. I don't know why they weren't on this listing, so I apologize. And then ranking in the Braves' new ballpark, which is called Truist Park now, not SunTrust Park. And looking at Truist Park a little bit, I gotta say it is a nice ballpark. I don't think it's uberly cool or unique in any way, but I think it's a solid stadium in vein of all the other B-listers. I think it is right in there. I'd have to put it at a B. There are some cool features going on in that ballpark, and I love all the brickwork, the overhang in left field. I believe there's a little waterfall out center, and then the unique kind of sitting area in right field where there's actually tables in front of you, which is really cool. I like that. Also, before I forget, there's one last stadium, that is the new Rangers ballpark, Globe Life Field. And I gotta say, I do not like it as much as the old ballpark. I feel like it's very hollow and empty and just a bit cavernous, and it just feels like there's no real life in the stadium. Maybe in person it's a really good place to catch a ball game. For one, that there's air conditioning compared to the other ballpark, I'm sure that's really nice, but just on TV it just doesn't look too good compared to the old ballpark. And for me, being a Mariners fan, the Mariners play in Texas a lot, being in the same division, so I see the stadium a decent amount, and I gotta say the new Rangers ballpark is just a C for me. So I think that is all the stadiums now, all 30 of them. So that is my ranking of all 30 MLB stadiums. Yes, this is super subjective, and this is my opinion on these stadiums. I'm sure no one will agree with me, and that's okay. That's the fun of these type of videos, because everyone has a different opinion on things like this. So you may have a completely different S tier or A tier than I do, and that's okay. So down in the comment section below, tell me your 3 favorite stadiums and 3 least favorite stadiums in baseball. That'd be great. And while you're down there, if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, that'd be greatly appreciated. Until next time, guys, everyone stay safe out there. Thanks for watching.